In this video, we're going to take a look at how to install Anaconda on Windows 10. Anaconda includes not only the Python 3.8 shell, but also a variety of extension modules and integrated development environments and other tools to make your life as a Python programmer easier. Okay, so we're first going to go to anaconda.com/download. Okay, pardon me, anaconda.com/download. And we get some advertising here. Your data science toolkit. The easiest way to perform Python, R, data science, and machine learning. Okay, fine. I'm sold. So what we want is the Anaconda Individual Edition. That's the free version of the product, assuming that you're not doing commercial work, which we are not. And by default, what we're going to get is the version for Windows, Python 3.8, 64-bit installer. You can, if you're using a Mac, rather than just clicking this download button here, notice that there are other installers that you can use as well. So you can click on the Apple symbol down here to download and install Anaconda on your Mac. Or if you happen to be using a Linux box, you can click on the penguin to get the Linux version. But I'm just going to click download. I am using Chrome as my browser, so when I click download, which I'm doing now, I get this Anaconda Nucleus screen here, which will let me develop Jupyter notebooks in Anaconda's cloud, which I don't really want to do, so I'm just going to close that. Down here in the lower left corner, you see that I have this download icon appearing, and this is my Anaconda installation executable. On the main screen, we get told thank you for downloading, and we get warned that if we want to use this for commercial purposes, we should buy Anaconda, but we're not using it for commercial purposes, so we can just ignore all of this stuff. And let's go to the executable. So in Chrome, I can go to the executable by clicking this little arrow symbol and going to Show in Folder. And let me drag that. Here's my file explorer, and here is my executable, Anaconda3 2021.05. So this is the version of Anaconda that was made available in May of 2021, and it is for Windows. To run it, I simply double-click it. Pause, pause, pause. Any day now. There we go. And I get my Welcome to Anaconda setup screen. I'll click Next. And here's my end user license. I'm going to agree. I agree. I'm going to install Anaconda just for me. Since I'm using Windows, I'm the only person on this Windows box. So I'll leave just me clicked and click Next. Next, I'm asked to choose the install location. I'm perfectly happy to have it be in the Anaconda 3 directory underneath my personal directory on Windows, so I'll just click Next. Now I'm given a choice or an option to add Anaconda 3 to my path environment variable, but I'm told this is not recommended, so I'm going to leave that unchecked. I do want to register Anaconda 3 as my default version of Python 3.8. Now, I only happen to have, I will have Anaconda 3 as my only version of Python. I have uninstalled previous versions, but I'm going to leave that register Anaconda 3 as my default Python 3.8 checked and click install. All right, now this part takes a little while, so I'm going to edit out some of the waiting involved in the Anaconda installing. Okay, so installation is complete, and I will click Next. Working with Python and Jupyter Notebooks is a breeze with PyCharm Pro. Okay, so PyCharm is a very nice, very powerful integrated development environment that a lot of people like. It is a separate product that does not come as part of Anaconda, but Anaconda gives you this link to install PyCharm if you wish. Anaconda.com/PyCharm. Anaconda does provide Spider, which is another very popular and powerful integrated development environment. So I'm not going to go through this PyCharm installation. If you would like to install PyCharm yourself, you're welcome to do that. I'm going to just close my File Explorer. I don't need it anymore. And so let's click Next to skip the PyCharm installation. Thank you for installing Anaconda. Here are some helpful tips and resources. Anaconda Individual Edition tutorial, getting started with Anaconda. So these are documents that you can go through if you wish, and if you've never used Anaconda or Python before, you might want to look at these, but I'm going to uncheck the tutorial and the getting started documents and click Finish. Okay, so I have now successfully installed Anaconda on my machine, and let me close my Chrome browser. And I'm going to go down now to my Start menu to access this stuff that I've just installed. Here, notice I have Anaconda 3, the 64-bit edition. And when I click the down arrow next to the Anaconda 3 folder, I have various applications that I can run. I have an Anaconda Navigator, which is a graphical interface to allow me to start other applications. I have a couple of versions of the Anaconda Prompt, a PowerShell version and an ordinary shell version. I also have a Jupyter Notebook and Spider. Spider is the nice, powerful integrated development environment for Python that I'll talk about a little bit later. Let me start out by just looking at this plain vanilla Anaconda prompt. And this just gives me an ordinary shell prompt interface in which I can interact with Python. The simplest development environment for Python, which actually is part of Python itself, is something called IDLE, I-D-L-E. This is an integrated development environment. I don't recall what the L stands for, but when I run IDLE, I get this shell window. The 3 greater than symbols is my shell prompt. This is a Python shell, not a Windows shell. And for this version of Anaconda, what I'm getting is Python 3.8.8. In here, I can do things like performing computations. 12 times 25 is 300. I can create a variable a to contain 1, 2, 3, 4.56, whatever. And I can see the value that the variable a refers to by just typing the name a. And to get out of idle, I can just type quit with parentheses. I'm asked to confirm your program is still running. Do you want to kill it? And I'll click OK. And we get ourselves back to the idle shell, or I'm sorry, to the Anaconda prompt shell. So that's one way of using of interacting with Python. A nicer way, let me go back to this Anaconda submenu in my start menu, is to use Spider. So let me show you Spider briefly. I'll click on the Spider icon. Spider takes several seconds to start up, all right? So we're using Spider 4, and well, that came up pretty quickly. And I'm told Spider 5.0.3 is available. So I can go ahead and install that if I wish. I don't really care, so I'm just going to click OK. And I'm going to dismiss the tour. You can start the tour if you wish. Okay, now what's nice about Spider is that Spider automatically provides both an interactive shell on the right-hand side of your screen and a program file that you can type on the left-hand side of your screen. So you can see both your program and the execution of your program all on the same screen. So let me demonstrate. This is the same, really, as the idle shell that we just took a brief look at. I can do a computation. And so in is the prompt waiting for me to type something, and out is the result shown for whatever it is that I type. If I say A gets, let me create a string, hello. Okay, a string in single quotes. Now A contains a string. I can ask for the length of A, and I get told the length of hello is 5. Okay, and so there I can just type stuff and have it executed immediately. Now, to run a program, I go over to this left-hand side, and let me do something like x gets 12.5. Now, notice that unlike the shell on the right-hand side, when I type x gets 12.5, I don't see any output as a consequence of that. It's just code that I'm storing into a file. I'll say y gets 2.3, and then I can say z gets x times y. So I've written this tiny little program now, and you may not be able to see it, but this program is automatically named temp.py. Up here in the very upper left corner, you'll see that the name temp.py has an asterisk symbol at its end. What that means is that I have not saved this file. I have typed stuff into this file, but I have not saved the file. And consequently, if I try to run the file by saying run, it automatically saves it for me, and the star goes away. The execution of the file happens over on the right-hand screen in this interactive window. I get told that I'm running this temp.py file, but I don't see any output, okay? So in a program, if you want to see output, you have to use a function called print, which will show you the values of various constants and variables. So let me type in x, comma, y, comma, z. And what the print function does, well, let's just do one at a time to be a little simpler. So we'll just print x. And when I run this thing now, by saying run, run, now the value of x is displayed, which is 12.5. I can display more things by saying comma and another variable. Let me say run, run. Okay, and now I have x and y. And I'll also display z. Run, run. And there we have x, y, and z. So z is the product of x and y. Notice something interesting, and we'll talk about this in the lecture, that these are floating point values, and floating point values cannot be stored in base 2 on the system, you know, the binary code in the system, to arbitrary precision. So 12.5 times 2.3 ought to be exactly 28.75. But apparently 28.75 cannot be stored exactly. So the closest value that is storable is 28.74, and then a bunch of 9s, and then a 6 on the tail end. So this 6 here, this very last digit in this floating point number, is actually garbage. It shouldn't be a 6. If anything, it should be a 9. Ideally, it would round up and give me a 28.74 or 0.75. All right. In any case, so this is a trivial example of a program. I have created 2 variables containing or referring to constant values, floating point values. I've created a 3rd variable that refers to the product of those 2 variables, and then I've printed out those 3 values. As a shorthand for run, run, notice that F5 is a shortcut key, so I can also just press F5, which I've done, and that causes the same thing to happen. Or I can also press this green arrow symbol, this green arrow icon, which is also causes the file to execute. So this will execute this for the 3rd time. All right, so there is a very trivial introduction to Spider. I strongly recommend that you get used to Spider, and if for whatever reason you don't like Spider, then you might wish to install and try PyCharm as an alternative. All right, so we've taken a really quick look at idle. We've taken a quick look at Spider. Let me just close Spider. I'll click the X. And the last thing I want to take a look at here under the Anaconda 3 choices is the Anaconda Navigator. This is what you'll probably use if you're using a Mac. All right, you'll be able to start this Anaconda Navigator. And the Anaconda Navigator, after a few hiccups, come on, try, is going to show me here we go. Okay, it's going to show me a window of icons that I can click to run various Python-related applications. And so in here we see that command.exe prompt is one program. That's the same as just running the command prompt that we did before. So let me do that. All right, so here's my command prompt, and in here I can run idle. And I'll close idle and close the command prompt. We can also run Spider from within here. So I can launch Spider, and Spider will start up. There we go. And Spider automatically remembers the last thing I was working on. So it pulls up that same program that I just showed you. And I'll close Spider. Many of these other things I frankly am not familiar with. It gives me an opportunity to install PyCharm. I also have something called Jupyter Notebook, which is an alternative sort of interactive method of executing Python code. Okay, and of course we can close the Navigator by just clicking the close button. Quit Anaconda Navigator, yes. All right, so there we are. So we have installed and played with Anaconda, showed how to create a shell from which I can run idle. I will be using idle for my lectures because it does not have a whole bunch of symbols and icons and clutter on my screen. We also looked at Spider, and I strongly recommend that you use Spider as an alternative. It's a much friendlier interface for writing code, but it does have a whole bunch of little icons and symbols and multiple windows and so on. So I don't like all of that screen clutter for my lectures. And to install on a Mac, just click on that Apple symbol that we talked about and go through and do your install, and you can find Anaconda Navigator on the Mac, and that in turn will enable you to execute Spider and various other things. All right, so there we are.